Hello everyone, welcome to the Extensions 101 webinar series. So we are in the day 3 session of our 5-day series on building extensions for Zoho Finance Suite applications. So this series is aimed at introducing the components available in the developer platform for building extensions and demonstrate to you on using each and every component with example use cases. I am Vinod and I am from the Zoho Marketplace team. Along with me, we also have Lavanya and Nandita from the Zoho Marketplace team and Kishore from the Zoho Finance team. So at any point in time during the session, if you have any queries, please post them in the chat window and we'll address them. Let's get started. Before we get into today's session, let's see a quick recap on our earlier sessions. So in our day 1 session, we introduced the 7 different Zoho products that constitute the Zoho Finance Suite. Then we explained what extensions are and how they are useful. After that, we introduced the Sigma platform, which is exclusively meant for building these extensions for any of the Zoho products. Finally, we introduced the Zoho Books developer platform and explained each and every component available within this developer platform. We concluded the session by building an extension for Zoho Books using this developer platform. And in our day 2 session, we covered a component connections. So connections are of important to extensions because it will help in establishing a communication both between Zoho Books and the services on the other end or within the Zoho Books itself. So with a couple of example use cases, we demonstrated the complete process of creating connections in the developer platform and using them as part of the extension building process. So as Charles mentioned, we have recorded both the sessions and made it available in YouTube. So if any one of you missed those sessions, we request you to make those videos use of it. Now let's get into today's session. So today's session is all about widgets. So we'll see when and where the widgets will be helpful. Then we'll see what are the steps involved in creating a widget. After that, we'll see the prerequisites required for building a widget. So the prerequisites would involve setting up a development environment and a basic knowledge on widget SDKs that are available from Zoho Books and the supported locations to embed the widgets. Then we'll give you a demonstration on creating a widget using the development environment, testing the widget in the sandbox environment, and then embedding the widget. Finally, we'll show you a use case wherein a widget would be required and demonstrate the complete process of building the widget along with the extension to achieve that particular use case. So let's get into each topic in more detail. So widgets are embeddable UI components which you can embed into your Zoho Books account as per your requirements. So with widgets, you can create your own UI and make it as much interactive with the users as much as you can. So the best part here is you will have a complete control over the design of the UI. So the widgets facilitate a seamless integration between Zoho Books and the third-party services, so that you can have access to the data or information every time. And you can also use the widgets to add new functionalities to Zoho Books, so that you can have everything that your organization needs at one place. So let's see a scenario to understand the widgets in detail. So in this particular case, we have created an integration between Zoho Books and Bitly, which is a URL shortening service. Say you want to share your invoice URL from Zoho Books to your customers, but you may feel the invoice URL is a bit long to share. In that case, you can use this extension to shorten the URL first and then share the shortened URL with your customers. So to implement this case, we have created a custom button which will trigger the action. So on click of this particular button, the users will get a pop-up like this, wherein the users will be provided with options to set the expiration date for the shortened URL like 15 days, 13 days, and all. This particular pop-up can be built with the help of widgets. So once the user choose an option over here and click on generate link, the user will again be provided with another pop-up with the shortened URL along with the link's expiration date. So in this way, you can create widgets of your own and add customizations to your Zoho Books product. Now let's see what are all the steps involved in creating a widget. So in order to create a widget, we have three main steps. The first step is to create a development environment. So once the development environment is ready, you can start with creating the widget by adding the necessary resources required for your implementation, and then validate and pack that particular widget project as a bundle. So once the bundle is ready, you can upload that bundle as a zip file in the developer portal so that you can make your widget embedded with the extensions. So when it comes to the development environment, we first need to install Node.js and npm, which we call Node Package Manager. So once we install the Node.js and npm, we then need to install ZCLI, which is a command line interface from Zoho to build widgets. So Z stands for Zoho Extension Toolkit, which enables us to build, test, and package our extensions in the platform itself. So the command to install the ZCLI is provided over here. You can use this particular command to install the ZCLI in your system. So once we have the basic development environment like Node.js, npm, and ZCLI installed in our system, we then need to know about the JS SDK methods provided from Zoho Books. So next we will see on the JS SDK methods provided for widgets. So here is the list of the JS SDK methods provided by Zoho Books to create widgets. First, we have init. So this method is to initialize a widget, and this method will be a part of each and every widget that we will be creating for Zoho Books. Then we have get and set methods. So these methods are used to handle data within the modules of Zoho Books. Next, we have request methods. So whenever we have data apart from the modules, or we need to involve APIs of Zoho Books or any third-party services, in that case, we can go with the request method. Then we have invoke methods. So this will help us to perform customized actions on our widgets. So currently, the custom actions allowed in Zoho Books are resizing the widget and refreshing the widget. Then if in case you want to store the data which we get from another service or from another module, store it within the Zoho Books and use it for further reference. In that scenarios, you can use the data storage methods. So this method provide us the data storage and retrieval capabilities. Finally, we have event APIs. This method will look for actions, happening within the Zoho Books, and whenever the specified action occurs, the counter action will be immediately triggered. So these are all the SDK methods provided to create widgets in Zoho Books, and the syntax and the code for these methods are provided in the developer documentation. So let's get into the developer documentation and see how the information is available over there. I'm just getting into the developer documentation, and as you can see, uh, the SDK methods I have just mentioned are listed over here. So first we have the init method. As I mentioned, this is going to initiate each and every initiate a widget, and this has to be a part of each and every widget that we create for Zoho Books. Then we have get and set methods. So the get and set methods, help us to handle data within the modules of Zoho Books. So here is the list of the modules supported by get and set methods. Once we click on that, here we can see a list of Zoho Books modules. So for all these modules, you can use the get and set SDK methods to handle data within this particular modules. Next, we have request method. So whenever you need to handle data apart from the modules that we have just mentioned within the get method, or you want to handle data from third-party services or any other Zoho Books API, you can go with the request method. So here you can see the syntax to construct the request method is given over here. In this, so using this as a reference, you can construct your request within your widget. So here you can see the URL, which is going to be the URL of the API that you are going to use, and the method is going to be the method of API that particular API follows. Also, for you will be getting some information out of that API, right? So that information has to be constructed in the format given below. Based on the APIs, you will be having both header and body, or for some methods, you will have only header or only body. So based on the API and the data you get out of that particular API, we need to construct this header and body first. After that, so in order to have a communication with that service, we will be having a connections, right? So that connection name should also be included as part of this object, and the complete object has to be passed through the request method. So this is how we can create a request method which can be handled within our widgets. So in our later part of the session, we will be demonstrating a use case, and in that particular use case, we will be briefing on this request method in detail. So in this way, you can refer to this particular documentation and use whatever the JS SDK methods required for your implementation. Let me go back to my presentation now. So once we have a development environment ready, and we have a knowledge on the JS SDK methods that we can use in our widgets, next we'll see how we can create a widget. So in order to create a widget, I already mentioned that we need to use the ZCLI. So the ZCLI provides some standard commands like zinit, validate, zrun, and zpack, which will help us to create, validate, pack, and test our widget project. Okay, so the zinit command is used to create a new widget project, and the validate is used to validate the project after all the necessary resources have been added to the project. And the zrun command will give us will initiate a local server to test the widget before publishing the widget. And the Z pack will help us to bundle all the resources that we have added as part of our widget project. So once we use the JS SDK methods and the ZCLI to create and bundle our widget project, it has to be associated to our extension for the widget to work. So whenever we are trying to associate an extension, we can host it either as an internal widget or as an external application. So when we host it as an internal application, the widget will run on the Zoho server. Instead, if you want the widget to be on the servers apart from Zoho, then you can use the external hosting option. So the procedure to host the application either as internal or as external will be covered in the later part of the session. Then after hosting, we will be embedding the widget in the following locations of Zoho Books. So currently, the widgets are supported in the following locations, namely right side bar, dashboard, web tab, and background. So based on your requirements, you can pick one of the locations and configure to embed your widget in that particular location. So with this, we have covered the steps involved to create a widget and the prerequisites that are required for a widget. Now, I'll demonstrate you the complete process of creating a widget, test it in the sandbox environment, and then embed it to an extension. Okay. So for that, we first need to create an extension. And in order to create an extension, we need to get into the Sigma platform. So I'll just get into the Sigma platform first and create a new extension. So to create a new extension, I'm clicking on the button New Extension, and I'm providing a name and description for the extension. Since the service is going to be Zoho Books, I'm choosing the service as Zoho Books over here. And once we agree to the terms and conditions and click on create, so as you can see over here, the extension that we have just created, successfully added as part of the all extensions section. Now we need to set up the development environment to create our widget. So for that, I'm getting into the terminal now. So while mentioning about the development environment setup, I mentioned we need to install Node.js and npm, right? I have already installed the Node.js and npm. I'll just show the versions of those Node.js and npm now. So to know the version of Node installed, we need to provide the command node space -b. So this is the version of the node that I have in my system. In the same way, to know the version of npm, we need to provide npm space -b. So for Zoho Books, the supported node version is any version higher than 7.1. So make sure whenever you want to create a widget, you have a node version higher than 7.1. Okay. So since in this, just like the node and npm, I have already created, installed my ZCLI as well. So let me go ahead and start creating the widget now. So I have already mentioned that in order to create a new widget, we need to provide the command z init. Once I execute the command, it is asking us for which Zoho service we are going to create the widget. So using the arrow key, I'm choosing the Zoho Book service over here. And once I choose the service, it is asking us to provide a project name. Once I provide the name, we can see that the project creation is already initiated and the project has been successfully created. So the project directory that we have just created is available in this particular path. Let's go ahead into my system and see if the project directory is available. So here we could find the project directory that we have just created. So once we get into that project, you can see a number of files have been already added as part of the project directory. So all these are the supporting files required for the widget, which will be created by default on creating the project directory. And in this list, you can find an option called app. And if you get into the app, you can see the JS files, the CSS, and the HTML files are already added as part of the directory. So these are the sample files which will be added by default into the project directory. So all the customizations that we need to add as part of our widget should be added into the app folder respectively. In the same way, we again have a file called plugin manifest.json. I'll just open that. So here you could see there are some default options provided as part of the plugin manifest. The first one is locale. In this here you can define the language of your widget. Since I am going with the English option, I am retaining the default option EN. Next we have service, and it has been filled with finance. Since this widget is going to be for the finance suite applications, the service has already been given as finance over there. And in the whitelisted domains, say you are handling any request URLs, and in that case you will be having some service URLs, right? The domain of that particular URL has to be provided under the whitelisted domains, so that this so that the services can be accessed without any hindrance. Next, under the widgets, you can define the location of the widget in Zoho Books. So while talking about embedding the widget, I mentioned we can embed the widget in 4 different locations, right? So based on your requirements, you can define the location over here, and this the information about defining the location is also already available as part of the developer documentation. You can refer the documentation, pick the location as per your requirements and define it over here. Next we have name. We can provide a name for your widget. Then in the URL, we already have a path for the particular widget. Now, while embedding, while discussing about embedding the widget, I mentioned that you can host the widget either internally or externally, right? If you want to host your widget internally, you can retain this particular URL as such. Instead, if you want to, host that widget externally along with this particular URL, you need to provide the relative path so that the application will identify the path and host the application on the external server. Finally, we have logo. Here, if you want to provide any customized logo for your widget, that can be provided over here. Finally, we have used connections. While discussing about the request method, I mentioned that we will be adding connections, right? So whatever the connections that you create for your widget or extension, those connections, the JSON snippet of that particular connection has to be added as part of used connections. So this is how you can configure the plugin manifest file of the widget you will be creating. So once you add all the necessary resources required for your implementation within the app folder, and the custom configurations required for your widget in the plugin manifest file, we shall come back to the terminal. And get into the folder again. Then provide the command set validate. So after adding all the resources for your implementation, you should be running this command, and only after you're getting this message as validation rules passed successfully, we can make sure that the implementation, whatever the implementations we have done, is correct. Then we can go ahead and test the widget now. So in order to test the widget, I mentioned we will be testing the widget before publishing in the sandbox environment, right? So we need to pass the command z run. And as you can see over here, it has started a local server running within this system. Now we are ready to test our widget locally. So for that, let me get into the extension I have just created. And once I click on test your extension button, you can see the sandbox environment has been opened successfully. So since this is a sandbox environment, which is a new and fresh environment, we won't be having any data within this. And if you check the plugin manifest file, here the location defined is invoice creation page and the sidebar, right? So we should be having our widget in the invoice in a sidebar of invoice creation page. So let me get into the invoice module, and if I click on to create a new invoice, so this is going to be our invoice creation page, and in its sidebar we can see the default default sample widget loaded successfully. So this is how we can test our widget in the sandbox environment before publishing it Okay. So now that we have tested and confirmed that the widget is working fine, let's get back to the terminal. Stop the server running and pack the widget. So for that, I'm providing the command set pack. And you can see the project directory has been packed successfully, and we have been provided with a zip folder in the disk folder. So let us get into the project directory now. And as you can see over here, a new folder called disk has been created, and this zip folder has been added into the folder successfully. So in order to embed our widget into the extension, we need to upload this zip file within the developer platform. So let me get back into my extension now. And in my extension, under the build section, you can find an option called widgets. So if we click on widgets, and here you can find a button called new widget to add a newly created widget. So once we click on the button, we need to provide a name, And in the visibility, you can define to whoever the users want to access this particular widget. I am going with the option everyone, and I'm providing a description over here. And in the upload zip, once we click on attach from desktop, you can choose the zip file that we have just packed using the zpack command. I'm choosing the file over here, and once I click on save, so you can see that the widget has been embedded to the extension successfully. So this is how you can create an extension, test it in the sandbox environment, and then once you confirm the widget is working fine, you can embed the widget into your extension. So if in case your implementation is done with this step, you can go ahead and publish this extension in the publish section. We'll move on to the next section, which is a use case wherein a widget would be required, and we will demonstrate how to create a widget to achieve that particular use case. Okay, I'll proceed with the use case now. So consider a scenario where you or your organization is using the Asana, which is a project management software, to handle multiple projects within your organization. Okay. In some cases, you may want to create estimates or invoices for any of the projects available in the Asana. In that case, we can pass on that project information to Zoho Books, so that from Zoho Books we can create invoices or estimates for the projects that are available from Asana. Okay, so the cases we will be passing on project from Zoho Books. We will be getting projects from Asana and make it available as projects within Zoho Books, so that we shall work on the project's information and create estimates or invoices which we can share with our customers. So for this purpose, we are going to create an integration between Asana and Zoho Books, and let's see how we can implement this particular use case. So to implement our use case, that is to get the projects from Asana and add it to Zoho Books, we require the 3 steps. First, since Asana and Zoho Books are 2 different services, we need to have a communication between each other. So we need to create a connection first. After that, once we get the project information from Asana into Books, it has to be moved to the projects module within Zoho Books, right? Again, for this data handling, we need another connection within Zoho Books itself. So we require 2 different connections, one for Asana and one for Zoho Books. Second thing is, we need to create a widget which will identify the workspace and the projects available within the workspace. So once we click on get your projects, will be triggered, and all the projects that are available in Asana will be made available within Zoho Books. Okay, so to handle this operations backend, we are going to create a widget, and we need to create that embed that particular widget created as part of the Zoho Books. So these are the 3 steps. First one is to create connections, the second is to create widgets, and the third one is to embed the widget within the Zoho Books. Okay. So let's go ahead and start implementing this use case. Before I go ahead with implementation, I'll share the logics which I have used to handle to create this widget. Since in our use case we are using the we are going to get projects from Asana, and that projects has to be added into Zoho Books, right? So to get the we need an API to get the projects, and again we need another API to push those project information into the projects module of Zoho Books. Since we are going to handle two different APIs, we have chosen the request SDK method. Okay, while mentioning about the JS SDK methods, I told that if you are dealing with the APIs of Zoho Books or third-party services, we need to use the request method, right? So as we mentioned, we have used the request method to handle both the APIs. So the first one is getting projects from Asana, right? So for that, in the URL, I have provided the API for getting projects from Asana. Okay, since that API follows the get method, that is, we are getting a project information. We have mentioned the method as get, and we have constructed the header based on the information available from the API, as well as you know uh, the the rules set by the Zoho Books for constructing the header. Okay. Um, so after constructing this syntax along with the connection name that we have created for Asana, all these objects will be passed through the JS request method to obtain the project information from Asana. Okay, so this is the first part of our implementation, and the next thing is putting the projects into books projects module, right? So again, this is an API is going to be involved over here, and for that I have used the Zoho Books projects creation API. And since it is going to add new projects into the projects module, we have defined the method as post over here, and we have constructed the header and body information as defined in the Zoho Books API documentation. So whatever the information, I mean the project information we will be fetching from Asana, the data has to be constructed in the form that the Zoho Books accepts, and we have constructed in the way it has been defined in the Zoho Books documentation. Again, it has to communicate within the Zoho Books, so we have included the connection created for Zoho Books. Okay. Finally, all these objects will be passed through another request method, which will create push all the projects obtained from Asana into Zoho Books projects module. Okay, so we have used two different request methods, since we are handling two different APIs. So this is the logic we have handled in our in our widget today. So let me go ahead, create an extension and create the widget required for this particular implementation. So in order to create a new extension, again I'm getting into Sigma, and I'm going to create a new extension. So I'm providing a name and a description for the extension. Since the service is Zoho Books, I'm choosing the service as Zoho Books over here. And after I agree to the terms and conditions and click on create, so you can see the extension has been successfully created now. Once we create the extension and click on the edit extension button, you can see we have been taken into the Zoho Books developer portal. So the first part of our implementation is to create two different connections, right? So to create a connection, we need to get into the build section, and under the build section, we will find the option connections. We will find the connections component in the left panel. Once I click on connections, so here we can go ahead and create our connection. Once I click on predefined connections, so we need to create two different connections. One is with Asana and one is with Zoho Books, right? So under the default services, I can find the Asana service listed. So I am picking that and I'm going ahead with creating a connection. Let me provide a name for the connection. And the connection link name has been added successfully. We can go ahead and create the connection now. Once we agree to connect with the service Asana, so we can see that the connection has been successfully created. In the same way, we'll create our another connection for Zoho Books. So let me search if Zoho Books is listed over here. So again, the Zoho Books service is also listed under default services. I'm getting into Zoho Books and go ahead with creating a connection. Now I'll provide a name for the connection. And the connection link name has been automatically generated. So in this case, after we get the projects, it has to be moved to Zoho Books projects module, right? So we need access to projects module. So I'll search for projects over here and go with the all option over there. Also, every project will be associated with the contact in Zoho Books. So we need access to contacts module as well. So I'm choosing the Zoho contacts as all options as well. So I have chosen all the required scopes for our implementation. And once I click on create and connect, so once we agree to connect, you can see the two scopes that I have provided. One is to access the contacts and one is to access the projects are listed over here. Once I accept, you can see the connection has been successfully created. So with this, the two required connections necessary for our implementation has been created. Next, we need to create the widget. So in order to create a widget, we need to get into the terminal, right? I'm getting into the terminal now. And I'm going to create a new widget project. So in order to create a new widget project, we need to provide the command init. And using the arrow keys, we can choose the service as Zoho Books. I need to provide a name for the project. So the project creation has been initialized and the project directory has been successfully created. Now let's get into the directory first. Here we can see the default files, as I mentioned earlier, has been successfully created. So our implementation, like the plugin manifest configuration and the widget and CS, widget JS and CSS files, has to be added as part of the app folder. So for our implementation purpose, I have already created an extension. Let me just show you the extension now. So this is the extension that I have created along with all the implementations added. And to get into that particular widgets folder, let me change my project directory. Okay, I'll just get into the project first, and I'll show you the implementation part. Within the app folder, I have added my widget.html file, and if I open the file, so as I mentioned earlier, I have added two different request methods to get the projects from Asana and push it to Zoho Books. Okay, and in the plugin manifest, I have included two different connections that I have created as part of the implementation. Okay, so let's go ahead and check if this particular widget works fine in the sandbox environment. So for that, I need to get into the terminal and enter the command zrun. So the local server is running now. Now I'll get into the extension and see if the extension is working fine in the sandbox environment. I mean, if the widget is working fine in the sandbox environment. For that, I'm clicking on test your extension button. And as you can see over here, the widget that I have just created is available in the sidebar. So once I click on that, so here we could see my workspace, my Asana workspace has been automatically fetched. And on click of this get projects from Asana button, I should be getting the projects from Asana into Zoho Books. First, I'll show you what are all the projects I have in Asana. So in my Asana account, I have two different projects. One is content development and the other one is work request. So now let me get back to the extension. And in the Zoho Books projects module, I have two projects with a different name. So on click of this button, I should be having those two projects from Asana as part of this list. So let me just check that. I'm just clicking on get projects from Asana. And if I refresh, so here you could see along with the two projects that I had already, the two projects from my Asana account has been successfully fetched and added into the Zoho projects module. So now we can confirm in the sandbox environment that my widget is working properly. So let me close the sandbox environment now. Go to the terminal, stop the server running and validate the files first. So for that, I'm providing the command widget validate. So the validation rules has been passed successfully, and now I'll provide the command z pack, and the zip file has been created successfully in the disk folder. So let me check if the disk folder is available. Okay. So the zip file has been successfully created. Now let me get back into my extension. I'll get into the widgets and I click on the new widget button to add the widget that we have just created. Once I click on the button and provide a name, and choose the service visibility and provide a description. And I'll just upload the zip that we have just created. Open and save. So with this, we have successfully created a widget and embedded it into our extension. Now, if we want to publish this extension, we need to get into the publish section and click on publish. So the extension has been submitted for the Zoho Finance team's review. So once the team validates the extension and approves it, we will be provided with a private installation URL. So if you want to use this particular extension only within your organization, or you want to share it with a closed group, then you can use that private installation URL, using which the users can install the extension and start using it. Instead, if you want to make this extension available in Zoho Marketplace, then you have to submit the extension again for Zoho Marketplace approval process. And once the approval team validates your extension and approves it, it will be listed in Zoho Marketplace. So this is how you can create widgets as per your requirements, and embed those widgets as part of your extension and make it available either as a private extension and or as a public extension in Zoho Marketplace.